I disinvited to Tulum after I got me a ticket.
Who told you that?
Y'all didn't want me to come.
Who said that? Who said we didn't want you to come? I'll wait. Because what we were told is that you didn't want to film with us.
Well, you already know why I want to film with y'all, because y'all sent me a cease and desist and try to destroy my business.
Who's
That's
y'all?
not true.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Who's y'all?
Hold.
Wait a minute. Wait. Come on. Let's go.
I want to go there, y'all.
Yes, we do.
Oh, yes, I do.
Who's y'all? Who's y'all?
The cameras weren't even rolling yet, and the Braxton family had already detonated into what insiders are calling the most explosive confrontation in the history of their reality empire. No dramatic entrance. No shouting. No cameras capturing tears. Just silence. According to multiple sources close to production, the moment Tamar Braxton stepped into that room, something felt different. The atmosphere changed instantly. Her sisters expected another tense conversation about schedules, filming commitments, and the long-rumored return of the family's reality show. Instead, Tamar arrived with something none of them were prepared for. Paper. Not notes. Not talking points. Legal documents. A thick folder, allegedly stacked with highlighted clauses, contract excerpts, and printed communications that insiders say could shake the entire foundation of the Braxton reality franchise. And the moment that folder hit the table, the room went cold. Sources claim Tamar didn't raise her voice. She didn't storm in with accusations. She calmly slid the documents forward and delivered a sentence that insiders say froze everyone in place. "I'm done letting the story be written without me." That single line detonated years of tension. Because what Tamar allegedly revealed next wasn't just a complaint about family drama, it was a calculated, legal-level challenge to how the Braxtons' reality show has operated behind the scenes. According to sources who claim to have seen the paperwork, Tamar arrived prepared to confront her sisters about contractual terms tied to the show's editing rights, participation expectations, and narrative control. And she had receipts. Highlighted sections of agreements. Email chains between production teams. Even references to specific episodes where Tamar believes her image and emotional struggles were amplified for ratings while context was quietly removed. The accusation that the show built its success on turning her into the family's emotional lightning rod. And Tamar wasn't willing to carry that role anymore. Across the table, the reactions reportedly exploded. One sister allegedly accused Tamar of trying to intimidate the family with lawyers. Another reportedly asked why she was turning a family conversation into a legal fight. But the most shocking reaction came from the one person everyone expected to lead the defense. Toni Braxton. Sources say Toni didn't interrupt. She didn't raise her voice. She simply leaned back in her chair and watched Tamar very closely. Because in that moment, it became clear this wasn't another family argument. This was a business confrontation. And Tamar wasn't bluffing. Insiders say Tamar began flipping through the documents one page at a time, pointing out clauses related to good faith representation, participant image rights, and editorial discretion. According to those present, Tamar calmly explained that several moments from previous seasons may have violated the spirit, if not the exact wording, of those agreements. She allegedly cited specific scenes, specific edits, specific emotional breakdowns that she claims were used to drive ratings while leaving out conversations that would have explained what was actually happening behind the scenes. That's when voices reportedly started rising. One sister insisted the show has always been messy and that everyone in the family has been exposed on camera at different times. But Tamar's response was immediate. "This isn't about messy," she reportedly said. "It's about consent." And suddenly the conversation was no longer about family drama. It was about control. Production representatives, who had been quietly sitting in the room, reportedly exchanged nervous looks as Tamar turned to another section of the documents. According to insiders, She pointed to language about dispute resolution and participation obligations tied to the show's future seasons. Then she said something that insiders claim made the entire room go silent again. "If the rules we agreed to can't be honored, I'm prepared to walk away. Not threaten. Not sabotage. Walk away." That distinction sent shockwaves through the meeting. Because the Braxtons' reality show has always relied on the chemistry and the chaos between all the sisters. Lose Tamar, and the emotional engine of the series disappears overnight. Sources say the emotional temperature in the room skyrocketed immediately. Old grievances resurfaced. Arguments about who benefited most from the show. Accusations about who has been protected by editing and who has taken the most public criticism. At one point, an insider claims Tamar accused the family of allowing her to become the problem character, while everyone else stayed safely balanced on screen. Another sister allegedly fired back that Tamar was rewriting history. The shouting grew louder. And then Tamar reportedly delivered one line that insiders say no one in the room will ever forget. "Overreacting doesn't come with legal citations." That's when production stepped in. Executives reportedly paused the meeting immediately, citing the need for legal review of the documents Tamar had presented. Filming schedules that had been tentatively planned for the next phase of the reality series were suddenly put under evaluation. Lawyers were contacted. Contracts were reopened. And just like that, what started as a family discussion had turned into a high-stakes business standoff. Behind the scenes, rumors began spreading through the entertainment industry within hours. Was Tamar preparing to leave the show entirely? Was she forcing a contract renegotiation? Or was she laying the groundwork for something even bigger? Because one insider close to the situation reportedly hinted that Tamar's documents didn't just reference the past. They referenced the future. Specifically, the legal terms surrounding the next season of the Braxtons' reality show. And if those terms are as explosive as insiders claim, the next move Tamar makes could completely rewrite the future of the entire franchise. The moment Tamar Braxton placed that thick folder on the table, the atmosphere inside the meeting reportedly shifted from family tension to full-blown corporate warfare. According to multiple insiders who claim knowledge of the confrontation, the sisters had gathered expecting a difficult but familiar conversation. For years, meetings about their reality show had followed a predictable pattern. Discussions about filming schedules, storyline ideas, and production budgets would spiral into emotional disagreements, then eventually settle into uneasy compromises. But this time was different. Because Tamar didn't come with complaints. She came with documentation. Sources say she opened the folder slowly, sliding several pages across the table so everyone could see them clearly. The papers were reportedly covered in highlights, annotations, and sticky tabs marking specific clauses inside the show's participation agreements. At first, no one spoke. Then one sister allegedly asked the question everyone in the room was thinking. "Why do you have lawyers involved in this?" Tamar's answer, according to insiders, landed like a thunderclap. "Because talking hasn't changed anything." Those 6 words reportedly triggered the first visible cracks in the room's fragile calm. For years, Tamar had been the loudest voice in the family. On camera, she was the emotional engine of the show, crying, laughing, arguing, and delivering the unforgettable moments that kept viewers glued to their screens. But according to Tamar, that same role had come with a hidden cost. She allegedly began reading sections of the contract aloud, pointing to language about portrayal rights, narrative manipulation, and mental health considerations that she believes were repeatedly ignored. One insider claims Tamar specifically referenced an episode where she was shown having an emotional breakdown during a family argument. According to Tamar's claim, the broadcast version of that moment left out the hours of conversation that led to it, creating the impression that she had exploded without reason. "It made me look unstable," she reportedly told the room. And that accusation changed everything. Because now the conversation wasn't just about family dynamics. It was about reputation. Across the table, reactions reportedly fractured instantly. One sister allegedly accused Tamar of trying to weaponize legal language against her own family. Another reportedly argued that reality television has always involved editing and storytelling. But Tamar, insiders say, didn't respond emotionally. Instead, she flipped to another page. According to those present, she pointed to a clause related to good faith representation and asked a question that left the room in stunned silence. Who decides what good faith actually means? No one answered. Production staff sitting along the wall reportedly avoided eye contact. Because once contractual language enters a family argument, the entire dynamic changes. Suddenly, every past moment on the show becomes evidence. Tamar allegedly continued outlining several incidents where she felt boundaries had been crossed. She referenced scenes where sensitive personal issues, mental health struggles, relationship conflicts, and deeply emotional family disputes were filmed despite her expressing hesitation. According to insiders, Tamar told the room that each of those moments chipped away at her sense of control over her own life. "You all got storylines," she reportedly said. "I got scars." That sentence reportedly triggered the first emotional explosion of the meeting. One sister slammed her hand on the table. Another accused Tamar of exaggerating the situation for leverage. Voices rose. Chairs scraped against the floor. The calm legal discussion Tamar had started was now colliding with years of unresolved resentment. And then Tony Braxton finally spoke. Sources say Tony had been watching quietly the entire time, studying Tamar's documents with the same calm composure she's famous for. When she finally broke her silence, the room reportedly fell still again. "What do you want, Tamar?" she asked. It wasn't an accusation. It wasn't a defense. It was a challenge. Tamar's response came without hesitation. According to insiders, she laid out 3 demands. First, she wants approval rights over any storyline involving her mental health or personal relationships. Second, she wants renegotiated compensation reflecting what she described as the emotional burden she has carried as the show's central conflict figure. Third, and most explosively, she wants written guarantees that certain family conflicts will not be filmed without her consent. The room reportedly erupted again. One sister allegedly argued that granting Tamar veto power over storylines would cripple the show's ability to function. Another accused her of trying to control the narrative. But Tamar reportedly stayed calm. According to one insider, she leaned forward and delivered a sentence that changed the tone of the meeting completely. "This isn't about controlling the story," she said. "It's about surviving it." That line reportedly stunned everyone present. Because suddenly the conversation was no longer about production logistics. It was about whether the show itself had been harming one of its stars. At that point, production executives sitting in the meeting reportedly began whispering among themselves. They understood the stakes. If Tamar's claims gained public traction, the show could face serious backlash. Reality television thrives on emotional conflict, but the industry is increasingly sensitive to accusations that cast members are being exploited for ratings. And Tamar's legal citations suggested she might be prepared to push that argument much further. Then came the moment that insiders say shook the room the most. Tamar allegedly turned to the final section of her folder and placed a separate stack of papers on the table. These documents, according to sources, weren't about past seasons. They were about the future. Specifically, the contractual terms being proposed for the next installment of the Braxton reality series. Tamar reportedly explained that she had reviewed those terms with her legal team. And unless major changes were made, she would not sign them. The room reportedly fell silent again. Because everyone understood what that meant. Without Tamar, the entire structure of the show could collapse. Her emotional intensity, her humor, her unpredictable reactions, those elements had become the franchise's heartbeat. Take that away, and the show might not survive. One sister allegedly asked the question no one wanted to say out loud. "You're really willing to walk away from all of this?" Tamar's answer was quiet, but devastating. "I'm willing to walk away from anything that costs me my peace." That sentence hung in the air like a storm cloud. And according to one insider, who witnessed the meeting, what happened next made it clear that this confrontation was far from over. Because someone else at the table, someone Tamar didn't expect, reached for the documents she had brought. And the moment they started reading them out loud, the fight took an even darker turn. The moment those documents were picked up and read out loud, the room reportedly shifted from tension to outright chaos. According to insiders, the sister who reached for Tamar's folder wasn't trying to understand it quietly. She began reading sections of the contract aloud, almost daring the room to acknowledge what Tamar had just done. The language was dense, legal, and impossible to ignore. Clauses about portrayal rights. Clauses about emotional harm. Clauses about participant consent regarding sensitive material. Each phrase felt like a spotlight on years of unresolved conflict that had been hiding beneath the entertainment. One insider claims the room went silent for nearly 30 seconds after the first paragraph was read. 30 seconds in a room full of sisters who rarely let silence exist. And then the accusations began flying. One sister reportedly slammed the folder shut and accused Tamar of turning the family into a courtroom. Another said bringing lawyers into a family show was the ultimate betrayal. Tamar didn't shout back. She reportedly leaned forward with a calm that unsettled everyone more than yelling ever could. According to the insider, she said quietly, "You're only hearing it now because you ignored it when I said it without paper." That line reportedly landed like a bomb. For years Tamar had complained about being portrayed as the family's emotional storm. The sister who cried too much, yelled too loudly, and overreacted to everything. But now she was claiming that role wasn't accidental. She believed it had become a convenient narrative that producers leaned on, and that the family had allowed to continue because it kept the show exciting. Production staff, still sitting against the wall, were reportedly shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Because the moment Tamar framed the conversation that way, the legal implications changed. If a cast member could argue that editing choices deliberately amplified emotional distress, the conversation could shift from entertainment to liability. That's when Tamar allegedly turned to a highlighted page and read another line from the contract. Participants shall not be depicted in a manner that intentionally misrepresents the context of a sensitive personal event. Then she looked around the table. Explain the Paris episode. Sources say the room instantly knew what she meant. The Paris incident had been one of the show's most dramatic moments. Tamar breaking down during a family trip, crying, arguing, leaving the scene abruptly. The footage aired with intense music and emotional commentary from the other sisters about Tamar being unpredictable. But according to Tamar, what viewers didn't see was the hours leading up to that breakdown. Conversations about her mental health. Disagreements about filming something she wasn't comfortable sharing publicly. Arguments that had nothing to do with the moment the audience eventually watched. According to insiders, Tamar told the room that episode followed her for years. Interviewers referenced it. Social media mocked it. Memes spread everywhere. "You all got sympathy edits," she allegedly said. "I got the meltdown." The accusation cracked something open. One sister reportedly shot back that Tamar had benefited from the show's fame more than anyone else. Another said Tamar's dramatic personality existed long before the cameras ever turned on. Tamar didn't deny that. In fact, insiders say she acknowledged it immediately. Yes, she reportedly said. I'm emotional. But the difference is you all get to recover from your emotions off camera. Mine get replayed forever. That statement reportedly caused the first visible meltdown of the meeting. One sister stood up, pacing across the room, while arguing that Tamar was rewriting the family's entire history just because she didn't like how certain scenes turned out. Another accused Tamar of trying to control the narrative now that the show's future was uncertain. But Tamar didn't back down. Instead, she flipped to another section of the folder. According to insiders, this part of the documents included printed email chains between Tamar's representatives and production staff from previous seasons. Messages where Tamar's team allegedly raised concerns about filming sensitive topics. Requests asking producers to reconsider certain storylines involving her personal life. The most shocking message, according to one source who claims to have seen it, was an email Tamar sent after a particularly difficult filming day. I need boundaries, it reportedly read. I can't keep reliving the same emotional wounds for entertainment. When the email was read out loud, the room reportedly went silent again. Because several sisters admitted they had never seen those communications before. That revelation ignited a second wave of anger. If Tamar had been raising concerns privately with production for years, why hadn't the family been told directly? Tamar's answer was simple. Because every time I tried to say it, you told me I was being dramatic. That sentence reportedly triggered the first emotional breakdown of the meeting. One insider claims a sister burst into tears, accusing Tamar of making it sound like the family had intentionally harmed her. Tamar immediately denied that. According to the insider, she said the problem wasn't intention. Its impact. But the emotional damage had already been done. Voices rose again. Old grievances resurfaced. Arguments about money, fame, and loyalty flooded the room. One sister allegedly accused Tamar of trying to destroy the show. Tamar responded that the show had already been destroying her peace. That's when Toni Braxton intervened again. Sources say Toni raised her voice just enough to cut through the chaos. Everyone stop. The room froze. Toni reportedly looked directly at Tamar and asked the question that had been hanging over the entire confrontation. Are you threatening to leave the show? Tamar's answer was quiet. I'm protecting myself. And that distinction, insiders say, was the moment everyone realized the fight wasn't ending that day. Because protecting herself meant Tamar was prepared to escalate things if the show continued without the changes she demanded. Production executives reportedly stepped in immediately after that statement. They asked the sisters to pause the discussion while the documents Tamar presented could be reviewed by the network's legal team. Filming plans were suspended. Contract negotiations were reopened. And suddenly the future of the entire Braxton reality franchise was uncertain. But as the meeting broke apart and the sisters began leaving the room one by one, an insider claims Tamar quietly said something to Toni that hinted the conflict might be even bigger than anyone realized. Those papers are just the beginning. Because according to the source, Tamar's folder contained something else the sisters hadn't fully seen yet. Something involving internal production communications. Messages Tamar believes could prove her storyline was shaped long before the cameras even started filming. And if those messages ever become public, the entire Braxton reality show could face a scandal far bigger than a family fight. The moment Tamar Braxton said, "Those papers are just the beginning," the entire room reportedly froze again, but this time the silence felt heavier, colder, and far more dangerous than anything that had come before. Because according to insiders, everyone at that table understood exactly what Tamar meant. The legal documents weren't the real bombshell. They were the warning. Sources claim Tamar slowly reached back into the folder and pulled out a second stack of papers, thinner, but far more explosive. These weren't contracts. They were printed communications. Internal production messages. Email threads. Text summaries allegedly exchanged between producers during the planning stages of past seasons. And if Tamar's interpretation of those messages is accurate, the implications could be devastating. According to one insider, who claims to have seen the documents, several of the communications appeared to discuss how Tamar's emotional reactions drove viewership spikes during previous seasons. One message allegedly suggested that producers should lean into Tamar's volatility because it created the show's most shareable moments. Another message, according to the source, reportedly included the phrase, "If Tamar blows up, we have our episode." When that line was allegedly read aloud in the room, insiders say the reaction was immediate and explosive. One sister reportedly stood up so quickly her chair fell backward. Another began demanding to know where Tamar got those emails. Production staff, who had been sitting quietly against the wall throughout the confrontation, suddenly looked visibly alarmed. Because internal production conversations were never meant to be seen by the cast. And if Tamar truly had access to them, the entire power dynamic of the show had just shifted. According to insiders, Tamar didn't accuse her sisters of orchestrating anything. In fact, she reportedly made it clear that her issue wasn't with them personally. Her issue was with a system that she believes benefited from her emotional vulnerability. "I was the storm you all filmed," she allegedly said. "But I was also the one standing in it." That sentence reportedly triggered another wave of emotional reactions around the table. One sister accused Tamar of trying to sabotage the show that had given the family global recognition. Another argued that every cast member on reality television faces editing choices they don't like. But Tamar reportedly pointed out something that stopped the room again. According to insiders, she asked everyone to name one episode where another sister's mental health struggles had been framed as the central storyline. No one answered. Because the truth, as many viewers have noticed over the years, is that Tamar's emotional reactions often became the defining moments of entire seasons. Arguments where Tamar cried. Scenes where Tamar stormed out. Moments where Tamar looked overwhelmed while the rest of the family commented on her behavior. Those scenes were the clips that went viral. The memes that spread across social media. The sound bites that talk shows replayed again and again. And now Tamar was suggesting those moments weren't just spontaneous drama. They were structural. According to the alleged emails in her possession, producers may have recognized early on that Tamar's emotional intensity created ratings gold. And once that formula was discovered, insiders claim the show began quietly building around it. If Tamar was upset, film it. If Tamar reacted strongly, center the episode on it. If Tamar walked away from a scene, follow her. One insider claims Tamar looked around the room and asked her sisters a question that cut through years of unresolved tension. "Did any of you ever wonder why I was always the one breaking down on camera?" The silence that followed reportedly lasted nearly a minute. Because whether anyone wanted to admit it or not, Tamar had been the emotional centerpiece of the series from the very beginning. Meanwhile, production executives were reportedly scrambling behind the scenes. According to multiple sources, the network's legal department was immediately alerted about Tamar's documents. The possibility that internal communications had been obtained by a cast member created an entirely new level of risk. If those messages became public, critics could argue that the show intentionally amplified one family member's distress for entertainment value. That narrative alone could cause serious reputational damage, not just to the show, but to the network itself. And Tamar seemed to understand that leverage perfectly. According to insiders, she didn't threaten lawsuits. She didn't demand immediate apologies. She simply closed the folder and said something that changed the tone of the meeting entirely. "I'm not trying to destroy this show," she reportedly said. "I'm trying to stop it from destroying me." That statement reportedly triggered the most emotional reaction of the entire confrontation. One sister burst into tears. Another reportedly apologized for not realizing how deeply Tamar had been affected by certain storylines. But not everyone was ready to accept Tamar's perspective. One insider claims a sister quietly asked Tamar whether she had planned the confrontation in advance. Tamar's response was immediate. Yes. That single word sent another shockwave through the room, because it confirmed what everyone was beginning to realize. This wasn't an impulsive outburst. It was a calculated move. Tamar had spent months reviewing contracts, gathering emails, and preparing her argument. And now she had forced the entire family, and the production team, to confront a reality they had never discussed openly before. The meeting reportedly ended without any final resolution. Production halted filming indefinitely while legal teams reviewed Tamar's documents. Network executives began discussing possible revisions to the show's format, including stricter mental health protections for cast members and new editing oversight policies. But insiders say the emotional damage inside the family may take much longer to repair. Several sisters reportedly left the meeting without speaking to Tamar. Others stayed behind, quietly asking questions about the documents she had presented. And Tamar herself reportedly walked out of the building alone. No dramatic exit. No shouting. Just a calm, controlled departure after delivering the most explosive confrontation the Braxton family had ever faced. Now the future of the entire franchise hangs in uncertainty. Will the sisters renegotiate the show's structure to address Tamar's concerns? Will Tamar step away completely, leaving the series without its most unpredictable star? Or will the alleged production emails eventually surface publicly, triggering a scandal that reshapes the entire narrative around the Braxton reality empire? For now, no official statements have been released. But insiders say one thing is certain. After Tamar Braxton walked into that room with legal documents in hand, the Braxton family reality show will never operate the same way again. Before you click away, understand something important. What you just heard isn't just another messy reality TV fight. This could be the moment that permanently changes the entire Braxton legacy. For years, millions of viewers watched the Braxtons laugh, cry, argue, and reconcile on camera. We believed we were seeing real life unfold in front of us. But Tamar walking into that room with legal documents has forced a much bigger question into the spotlight. How much of that reality was actually controlled behind the scenes? And if Tamar really has those production emails, if those messages ever surface publicly, this situation could explode into a scandal far bigger than a family argument. That's why this story is far from over. New information could drop at any moment. One leaked message, one insider interview, one public response from the family, and the entire narrative could shift overnight. So now I want to hear from you. Do you believe Tamar was right to confront her sisters and production with legal documents to protect herself? Or do you think bringing lawyers into a family reality show crossed a line that may be impossible to repair? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. This conversation is already heating up, and your voice is part of it. If you want to stay ahead of every twist in this story, the leaked receipts, the insider updates, and the reactions that could shake the Braxton family even further, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications right now. Because if the next document drops, if someone from the Braxton family finally breaks their silence, or if Tamar decides to reveal everything she has, you'll want to be here the moment it happens.